Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey, we're back. InsideRealEstateRadio.com is the website, InsideRealEstateRadio.com. There's so much good information on the website, folks. We got a lot of great stories. You can connect to all of our social media. We put all the stories up there. You got Pinterest on there, our YouTube. And then, of course, however you like to listen to your media. You know, if you want to listen to past shows, past interviews on YouTube, you can do that. If you want to do it on SoundCloud, if you want to do it on iTunes, all of those things. And we have so many great pieces of information for you out there. So there's hit the website up and take care of you with lots of good stuff. Richard is here.
Yes, I am. And it's funny, you're talking about SoundCloud and all that, and every week I go home and I ask my wife, okay, he mentioned this on the show. What is this? Because if I'm not talking to someone face-to-face or on the phone, I know those two things.
Yeah, that's because we don't have Sam on our side.
That's right.
Sam
the tech guru wizard of all things. By the way, RichardTAgency.com is Richard's website. RichardTAgency.com, our resident expert in all things insurance, home, toys, life, auto, etc. And so what's the scoop today?
Well, with all the high rains that we had in the recent flooding that we had, I thought I'd talk about flood insurance today, making sure that people know what there is to know, and just kind of go over some important facts that FEMA thinks that you should know about flood insurance, because FEMA is the agency that actually sets the rate for your insurance or your flood insurance.
Right.
And so the price that I'm going to give you is going to be the same price that the agent down the street is going to give you, because they're setting the prices. They're setting those prices by doing different maps and having different different accounts, or making on their maps there are different delineations of high risk, low risk, or moderate risk, and depending on where you live, you can have it. A typical policy is going to cost anywhere between $400 or $500. Not that bad, but it's one of those things that everyone should at least investigate, because like I've said before, your home insurance protects you for a lot of things. There are two big glaring things that they do not cover you for. One is flood, and the other is earthquakes. And so if either one of those things happen and you have a fantastic home policy, you're still not going to be covered. And it is going to be a complete out-of-pocket loss unless it's a federal disaster. And we'll kind of touch on what the difference is in a federal disaster and the difference between that and flood policy. But for most of us, all of us are going to be, our home is our biggest asset, biggest investment that we make in our life. And none of us, I believe, that can really just sustain a total loss if a flood comes by.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and most losses are water related.
Yes.
You know, and it's, look, if you're looking to purchase a home, we get the survey, we're looking at it in advance. Where is it located? Many homes are located in a 500 year. It's the 100 year that you want to worry about, but it's usually pretty obvious. You're in a low-lying area, you're near culverts, or you're near creeks, you're near a lake, et cetera, et cetera. If you're near any body of water or any area that water ponds in, spend the $300, $500 a year for the policy and do it, because chances are you're going to get hit.
Absolutely. And FEMA estimates that between 20 to 25% of all the losses are in areas where they are low risk. So 1 out of every 4 is in an area where, I'll never have a flood here. Oh, really? Well, the statistics say that you probably will. Mm-hmm.
And construction is a huge part of it, because if you're in an area where there's high construction, or construction has changed, or the highways have changed,
exactly,
the roadways have changed, and somehow that directs water flow.
It sure does, and we're constantly changing our topography and the way that the water runs down, and our sewer system and or drains may not be up to code, or not to code, but may not be sufficient for your neighborhood. It may have been at one point in time, and then now we get a flash flood and we get a heavy rain, flash flood comes in, destroys your house or the first floor of your house, and most of the time, that is not going to be declared a disaster area. It's just going to be a flash flood, and it's going to be a total out-of-pocket expense.
Right.
And so what you're looking at is just really protecting yourself and your family of making sure that you look at all the things. Is this to say that I think absolutely everyone should have flood insurance? Absolutely not. If you're at the top of a hill and you've got great drainage, why would you? And I look at my own self. I don't have flood insurance. It's not something me and my wife have considered all the options and have looked at everything. And even with all the rains that we've gotten in the flash flooding that's been in our area, it's never even come close to our house. If it had come close to our house, absolutely, I'd be all over it. But because you never know when that one storm's going to come through, and it's just absolutely going to make it to where things that, like you said, the 500-year flood storm, this may be the year that you have that. Excuse me. And the amount of damage that water does is astronomical. I mean, just look at what's happened in Irving with all the flooding there. And unfortunately, did most of those people have flood insurance? I hope they did. Mm-hmm. But that hasn't been declared a national disaster area. So if it's not declared a national disaster area, that means that the federal government isn't going to come in and pay for your losses or anything else. It means that you are responsible for any damages or losses that you incur as a result of whatever happened. And so until the government comes in and says this is a national disaster area and we will be covering this, you're on the hook for everything. And it's something that you really need to look at because on a personal level, they will go. You can get a policy that goes up to $250,000. If you have a $10 million home or $1 million home, is that going to be sufficient? Well, it's as far as FEMA will go. Right. You can get private insurance, but you're still looking at $250,000 max on your flood insurance. On a personal side, on a commercial side, you're looking at $500,000, and that's when I'm talking about $400 to $500. That's in the low risk areas. If you're in a high risk area, a lot of times when you're dealing with Terri, you're going to have to get a flood policy to begin with. If you're what's called a zone A or an AE or a V, which are high risk areas for flooding, you are going to have, I don't know of any mortgage companies that are going to give you a mortgage without having flood insurance if you're in a high risk area.
We pull a flood certificate on every single file. And if it's in a flood zone, you're required to get flood insurance.
And that's what I do. For every customer I deal with, I absolutely pull their flood zone determination. And whether it's with company A, B, or C, it's just like everything else that I do. I've got multiple carriers that offer flood insurance for everyone. And so is there going to be a big change in price? Absolutely not. Because like I said, FEMA kind of sets the rates for everybody, and everyone, insurance companies, as most people know, are in the business of making money. And so
you don't want to break even either.
My wife doesn't like it when I break even.
Yeah, breaking even's not good.
Right. But it's so those prices are constant throughout, but it's going through and making sure that people know what kind of zone that they're in, because if you are in a high risk and you don't have a mortgage on your house, why aren't you carrying? And I have some customers that absolutely will not, and I have carriers that do not make them if you don't have a mortgage on your house, because the mortgage company is the one that really kind of drives. You have to have this insurance because if something happens to your house, we want our money back, because you never really own it until you pay that mortgage off.
Right,
exactly.
And so when you're protecting yourself or your family, just make sure that you know exactly what zone you're in. At least take the moment to look at what kind of protection that you're getting. because like I said, like we've talked about, I mean, in areas, if you're moving into an area where there's a lot of construction going on, it's amazing how much flooding goes on around there, because as they're building the house next to you, as they're building the house behind you, all that is diverting water. All that is diverting water in ways that it hasn't been diverted before. And it may affect you, and your homeowner's policy will not cover it if you don't have flood insurance.
And it's usually not terribly expensive, is it, Richard?
No, absolutely not. And like I said, between $400 to $500 is most,
Right.
And that's for the very highest. And I'm looking at the $250,000 policy. You're looking between $400 and $500.
Yeah.
Yeah, not bad at all for a little bit of a peace of mind. And, of course, if you have a mortgage on your property, you may not have a choice anyway. But, yeah, think about it, because, most losses are water-related. And honestly, you need to think about the earthquakes now, too. I mean, I was just noticing on Nextdoor, which is the neighborhood thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are like, hey, did you hear that boom? Did you hear that boom? Did you hear that boom? Yeah, the booms have been going on for, the last decade, and then the rattlings and the little – it's due to the fracking, the drilling, and the depositing of water. Most of our area in Arlington, where you live as well, Richard, is the drilling. But so for that reason, anybody in the North Texas area might want to think about the earthquake insurance as well. So for that, for flood, for home, auto, toys, all the rest, look, Richard can shop over 25 companies behind the scenes for you to get the best policy plus the best rate. Your company, your big box company, cannot do that. His website, richardtagency.com, richardtagency.com. We're going to take a short break, folks. See you in a few.